Sara, I am so excited that you have decided to chat with me today. And I want to thank you so much for being willing to share about your journey and your experience healing your relationship with food. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you for being here.
You're welcome. I'm excited to be here.
I'm glad that you are. I loved working with you. Sara and I worked together for 3 months, and Sara just graduated from the program recently. So she very generously offered to come in and share a bit about her journey. So maybe you can start, Sara, by just introducing yourself. Tell us like who you are, where you live. If you want to share that, you can, what you do, what you're passionate about, all of the good things.
Yeah, I'm Sara. I'm 37. I live in Fairfax, Virginia, so I'm in the DC metro area. I work in healthcare. I've been doing healthcare stuff for over a decade now. Actually, mostly since I got out of college, I've been in healthcare in some fashion. I'm currently working on getting my master's in public health at George Washington. I work at a big hospital system up here, Inova, as a quality consultant, which is a lot of fun. A lot of data, a lot of charts, but also a lot of like talking to different community providers, which is, I think, my favorite part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
I have some
pets?
Yeah, I was going to say I have a dog I share with my ex-husband named Hobbs, and a cat, Ivy, who I think she's curled up behind my husband's laptop, but she might make an appearance behind me if she's feeling it. But I think she's curled up somewhere warm right now.
I would love to see her.
Yeah, we'll see if she wants to come visit. Probably not. I think she's asleep, like right up against my husband's laptop where it's like super warm. So
I mean, I don't blame her. I would stay there too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Other things about you, you love to cook. You're a great chef.
Cooking. I love cooking. I love cooking. I love baking. I'm a giant nerd. I like role-playing games and tabletop board games and reading and some video games. I knit.
Yes.
I love being outside. I've been considering, so my grandpa was big into bird watching and used to take me out with him, and I've been considering maybe getting back into that because I've seen some woodpeckers out on one of the paths I like to walk on, and sometimes there's like herons, and yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, maybe when the weather's nice, I'll get into that because there's a lot of good parks out in Virginia. So
yeah, you're into a lot of cool things. I was especially interested in, because I love to cook and bake, and I'm always interested to see how that passion can sort of be reignited or enriched once you heal your relationship with food. So maybe we can get into that today. But thank you for sharing what you shared about yourself. Maybe we can go back to the beginning of like how you and I met, or just why you decided to do this program with me. Like, what were the events that led up to your decision to heal your relationship with food? I know that you tried a lot of different diets, so maybe you can tell us about, tell us about that. But yeah, like what was some of the backstory that you're willing to share with us?
So if we go into the diet history, I think the first time I went on like I'm changing how I eat to lose weight, because I did have like a very brief stint trying to be vegetarian when I was like 4, but that was not about weight loss. I wanted to be just like my Aunt Carrie, who had horses and loved animals, so that was more like I want to be like my aunt and do this. So actually, my mom had tried to give me really, really healthy food all the time as a little kid. Like, I was the first, so she asked the pediatrician about nutrition. It was all whole grains, all fruits and vegetables. I got Epstein-Barr virus as a very small child. I was about 3. And so I basically had mono as a toddler. And I lost a ton of weight. And the doctor was like, you need to bulk that kid up. Like, and I had lost like an unhealthy because I was so sick. So all of a sudden, all the food that wasn't allowed, that was like special, I got to eat as much as I wanted to, because the doctor was like, forget everything I've taught you about nutrition and health, just chips, soda, ice cream, burgers, anything she will eat that's calorie dense, you need to get into her.
Yeah.
And then when I was about 15 or 16, I think, I tried losing weight for the first time, like intentionally. I did Weight Watchers with my mom. I think my sister might have done it too. I don't remember. Karen would, if I was 50, gosh, she would have been like 10 or 11.
Wow, that's so young.
And my mom had a long history. She was overweight. She was obese. She was obese. Mm-hmm. She was in a much larger body, was always trying to lose weight. So I grew up seeing that. So I did Weight Watchers, lost some weight. It was really successful. Well, I lost a bunch of weight, hit a plateau. I think my body was like, no, you need this, honey. Got pneumonia, dropped the rest of the weight, and was like, yeah, this is great, which is not. Yeah. And then through college, like I gained weight back because there was I love ice cream. I love ice cream and baked goods. I went to Penn State, so there was creamery ice cream from the Penn State Creamery in
Oh yeah.
every dining hall. It was amazing. But what ended up happening was I gained a bunch of weight, felt really bad about myself. And just over the next several years, I would just try and eat better. I would try and cut food out. I did the on and off of like SparkPeople and MyFitnessPal. I had a Fitbit for a while, which I've since ditched, like a food tracker on that. And I went back to Weight Watchers not that long ago, maybe in 2019. I've done Noom. Oh, I've tried Whole Foods. I've tried the Special K diet, which is if you want to think about eating your coworkers, that's a great one. I was so hungry. I wanted to lose weight for my first wedding. So I tried that. I've done intermittent fasting, and the most recent was Noom. And I was like, kind of like, I'm not really losing weight. I'm not really happy with this. It's really expensive. Around that time, I have a number of amazing aunts. One of my other aunts was telling me about body kindness. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I understand the BMI is bullshit. Like, I knew that. I'm like, but like we see a really big correlation with weight and all these other health problems. I don't know. So I started listening to the Body Kindness podcast and read, I think I've only read like the first half of Body Kindness. Grad school's a lot of reading, so I have a difficult time always reading stuff for me. Grad school is for me, but like the non-grad stuff sometimes I have a hard time getting to. But so I was starting to like look into that, and I felt just like, well, all I'm ever going to do is eat junk food. I'd heard about intuitive and mindful eating, ironically through Noom, which is they've kind of diet cultured it up. And I just hit like a really low point where I think I had joined a couple of Facebook groups. You had messaged me, and I was like, whatever, I'll get to that later. Like, I'm starting grad school. I don't have time for this nonsense. I just don't. I went Halloween costume shopping and ended up at home in tears. I felt so terrible about my body, about how I looked. I knew that it wasn't like the way I was feeling wasn't normal. I felt like I couldn't have stuff in the house that I liked. Like I couldn't have chips or cookies or ice cream. Like I wouldn't keep those in my house. Like we would get candy on Halloween, and my roommate loves candy. So when they have candy in the house, I was like, well, that's theirs. I'm not going to eat it. I can't. It's not mine. Like I just wouldn't put it in the house if I could avoid it. And I finally, I think was like, fine, I'll do the free phone call. I'll just see what this is about. And I think at that point you were like, Sarah, you have a lot on your plate. Are you sure now's a good time? And I was like, I just had a meltdown, like sitting in the car crying for like 20 minutes about how much I think I need this now. Like, I understand grad school is like a lot on my plate, but I need to get this off the plate to make room for other things in my life.
That's a good perspective, that it wasn't necessarily adding something onto your plate, but it was rather removing this really like toxic, area of your life, taking that off of your plate.
Yeah. And I think I hadn't realized how disordered my eating had been for so long. Cause like I've never had an eating disorder, like diagnosed, but like I used to feel so guilty when I ate when I was in high school. I would get like physically nauseous if like I had a bowl of ice cream. I was like a 17-year-old. I'm pretty tall. I'm like 5'9". I was at what would be considered even by like a doctor to be at like the most like BMI is it or nothing healthy weight. And I would have all these intense feelings of shame and guilt about eating a bowl of ice cream in the summertime. Like really ridiculous, like really unhealthy. And I think, and it's been taking all of that off of my plate, which I think has been really important.
Yeah. I mean, we're able to look back and see that the ways in which you were relating to food actually was like disordered, but it's so hard to see it that way when we're just doing the thing that diet culture tells us to do, that diet culture tells us is healthy.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm just remembering. I'm like, oh, right. I also did an elimination diet for a while, but that was like, I had IBS and actually what was wrong with me. And she was like, I remember like, is it my weight? She was like, no. Something's wrong with you. Like something, like she was a really good doctor in that way. She was like, something's wrong. We're going to figure it out. I guess the next step, she's like, you can do a colonoscopy, but this is less like invasive. And I was like, yeah, sounds good. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've tried a lot of diets.
Yeah. You have tried a lot of diets. And even like your history with food, you have some interesting things that go back to even being like 4 years old, and then like dieting. I mean, you started dieting real young. And that will absolutely really mess up your relationship with food moving
Yeah.
forward, because then you start to relate to food in such a way of like, all of this is good and all of this is bad and this is off limits and this is on limits. So then you become an
Yeah.
adult who like can't keep their favorite foods in the house.
Yeah. And I was born in 84. So like my mom had the best of intentions. Like, hey, she went to the pediatrician and said, how do I keep what do I do to keep my kid healthy? Like, I
Yeah.
know she knew that like the clean your plate thing she had been brought up with wasn't good.
Mm-hmm.
She knew that like she wanted me to grow up healthy and strong and all with all the nutrients I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And so like when I first started having all that like junk food introduced, it was this like huge big deal and made it like so special and so good, and it made me want it more because it was difficult for me to get my hands on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because it wasn't common, because it was not good for me, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, and a lot of that does start off pretty innocent. I mean, when it comes
Yeah.
to either our parents or the way we're relating to food, is it's like it starts with an interest in health. But I
Yeah.
think what we are not taught is that weight does not equal health. So being at a
Correct.
higher weight is not inherently problematic. And we get very alarmed by that, being at a higher weight. But I mean, especially, I mean, you're getting master's in public health, but what we have come to find throughout the research and all this reading we've done is a lot of those health conditions that we find in people of higher weight, it's correlation, not causation. And there
Yep.
are so many other factors.
Yep. The thing that the biggest predictors of your health are your determinants of health
Mm-hmm.
and your behaviors. Weight's not a behavior.
Yeah, absolutely.
Movement is a behavior. Eating fruits and vegetables and whole grains, those are behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Getting enough sleep is a behavior. Weight is just a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. So you did really just a lot of diets. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
usually when clients come to me, they are just like, I realized that wasn't working for me anymore, because like if a diet was going to work for me, it would have worked by now. And you realize that like, okay, now we try intermittent fasting and now we try Noom. And it's like, you get to this point where you're like, this is really just different versions of the same thing. Like it's all just dieting, and dieting itself like is what's creating this chaos in my relationship with food. So was that your
Yeah.
experience where you were like, I can't diet anymore, like it's not working?
Yeah, I was just so like the only one that really properly feel like worked, like with the weight coming off in a way that felt kind of not like super inundating in my life, was I tried cutting out all added sugar.
Mm.
Which once I found all the food I could eat, like it was pretty easy to do that, unless I wanted to like go out to eat, or I wanted like waffles or
Yeah.
anything with like maple syrup or honey or anything like that. So, but yeah, it was just, I was so tired of it. It felt just overwhelming to constantly having to think and plan about what I was going to eat, when I was going to eat it, what if I get hungry, how many points is this? Is this a red, green, or yellow food? How many calories? And then I would do the diet math of, okay, well, if I have, X amount of calories in a day, I'm hungry now. And it would just, food would start coming off of dinner. Like, well, what if I only eat like a third cup of rice as dinner? What if I only have like half a biscuit? What if I eat half a chicken breast? Can I have a snack right now? And it was
It's
just
like a
like,
full-time job.
it was exhausting. And I was constantly like, I hit that point where I would like kind of stop being hungry, like, oh, it's working. And then I would get hungry again, because my
Yeah.
body kind of went through that cycle of, well, I guess she's not listening. We're
Yeah.
going to stop, followed by, we saw food. Let her
Yeah.
know there's food.
Yeah, and it's like when you're doing like, okay, so we try cutting out sugar, and then it's like, but at what cost? Because then it's like,
Yeah.
then I can't go out to eat, or when I go out to eat, I can't participate, and I am missing out on all of these yummy foods. But then also we see that the weight loss, if there's any weight loss at all, it's short term. The weight does end up coming back on, so it's like it's just not worth it.
No. It's not. And then it was that whole like, well, maybe it's because I'm addicted to sugar. It's no.
You're not addicted to sugar.
No.
Yeah. And, but it can feel like you are when you are restricting sugar and then you finally have access to sugar and then it's like you just can't get enough of it. But I think the issue there was the restriction. It's not that you have any sort of addiction to sugar.
I know when we started, I was like, I don't keep ice cream in the house. I want to have ice cream in the house. And right now there is, I think, I haven't looked in a minute, in the freezer, I think there is part of a carton of chocolate vanilla ice cream and part of a carton of Brewster's mint chocolate chip.
Let's go!
Because I haven't eaten it. Like, yeah, it's like I have cookies in the house and I've had a couple, but like last night at dinner, I was like, oh, I'm going to pop the dessert cookies out. And I was like, I'll get one later if I want to know what one I'm.
Look at this.
Yeah, and that's not something I could do before. Like, it was, there's cookies here right now. I'm going to eat some even if I'm not hungry because they're here and they're delicious and I want them.
Yes, I know. We did have to work through this process of getting you comfortable with having those foods in the house and just having it be like no big deal. But I have to work through that with almost every single one of my clients.
Yeah.
And usually it is ice cream. A lot of times it's Doritos, it's some type of chips. But then they get to this point where the food's in the house and it's just like, you forget that it's even there. But I know when you first came to me, Sarah, I would love to talk maybe more about what that process looked like for you. But when you first came to me, I have in our notes from our consultation that you felt like you were thinking about food in your body just like pretty constantly, like it was very invasive. Can you talk to me more about maybe what that felt like for you?
I think it had been going on for so long in my life that I think it just kind of felt normal. And part of it is like, I legitimately do love food. Like I cook a ton and I like learning about different cooking techniques. I love trying new recipes. So part of it felt kind of normal. Like, well, yeah, of course I'm bored. I'm going to like go browse on my favorite food bloggers websites. Cause I still do that sometimes. I still like it. Like I'll pop out a cookbook and flip through to be like, what am I going to make this week?
Yeah.
But it was like a constant thing. Like I used to joke that I'm not the girl who's going to tell you, I don't know what I want for dinner. Because I knew, because I wanted it. Or it was that like I would know what I could eat and where I could get that thing that I could safely eat. And now I have the opposite problem. I'm like, oh man, I could have anything. What do I want? Which is really freeing. And it's really nice because some mornings I wake up and I want like a bowl of Cheerios with bananas or like oatmeal with berries. And some mornings I want Pop-Tarts and it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conclusion that you came to was all of the dieting had created so many rules around food and that was really problematic. And
it was exhausting.
Yeah. So what we have to do to make food like a non-issue in your life and to make eating just like really easy is we have to just strip away those rules and instead implement permission so that you can feel at peace around all foods. And then you can ask yourself what you genuinely want and need. And one thing that's been really interesting for you to find, Sarah, is like, there's this usually this initial fear of like, but if I remove those food rules and that control, then I'm just going to like eat junk food, quote unquote, like all day long. But it was really exciting for you to come to me week after week being like, I'm craving Caesar salads and like, I'm having just a bowl of veggies or whatever it might be. So it's like, it really doesn't play out the way people are afraid that it will. Right.
No, I had learned to not trust my body. And it turns out like last week I was driving around a lot for my job. I did go to a bunch of different practices and I ended up, because of the pandemic, I don't want to go somewhere to sit and eat. And I'm like eating in my car and like a pretty brief amount of time. So it was a lot of like fast food and sandwiches. And by the end of the week I was like, I want vegetables. I want salad. And I think I joked with my husband. I'm like, I'm supposed to crave ice cream, not salad. But here I am, like, because my body was like, I don't want any more of that. Like, it knew, and it was not like I was doing it to like punish. It was just like, well, I need to eat. If I wait too long, I'm going to feel really crappy. Well, there's like a Subway up right here, a Potbelly, like whatever. I'm just going to go get whatever sounds good, and it's only a week. Whereas before I would have been like real stressed out about it, trying to like shove like a peanut butter sandwich on my car. And it's like, no, it's cold out. I want something warm.
Yeah. And you're able to honor your body in that way too, which I think is really cool. There's so much less drama around food for you where you were even this past week when you're driving around a lot, you have to eat more convenience foods. You're like, you know what, like it is what it is. And I trust that my body's going to crave vegetables again. And we're going to get back to this point where like, we're feeling good and it's fine. And just like, not a big deal. Like, I think a lot of people, especially in the all or nothing mentality around food, they'd be like, well, I totally blew it. Nothing matters anymore. And then they just
and I would do that all the time. Well, I ate whatever thing that like a French fry or whatever, well, I might as well just go get some ice cream now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really common. Well, speaking of ice cream, so we got to this point where you're able to have ice cream in the house and it's
Yeah.
really no big deal. And that was something that you could not foresee in your future. When we first started working together, you were just like,
Yeah.
I don't think that it will be possible for me to just like have ice cream in the house and not eat the entire thing in one sitting. Can you
Yeah.
speak?
I was like, because you were like, you're going to eat it every night, the same kind of ice cream around the same time of day. You have to do it the first 2 days. And then after that, and I joked, I'm like, I have to go eat my homework ice cream. And I
Yeah.
think by like day 4, I was like, 'cause I had assumed that I was going to eat ice cream every single day till that half gallon was gone, or to another one and do it over again. And honestly, after a couple of days when it just was in the house, I could have it. And it was peanut butter chocolate, which is my favorite. I could just have it whenever I wanted it.
Yes.
And it stopped being a big deal.
Yes. So that's a very, very powerful shift. And usually, I mean, I've done this with clients over and over again, and it's always the same. They're like, that might have worked for your other client, but that's not going to work for me. And it's like, just you wait and see. So we're doing this. We did a process called habituation, which is where
Yeah.
it's kind of like exposure therapy, where we are going to intentionally, like safely and systematically decide to eat this food. And there are certain like strategies around it. You don't want to do it when you're ravenously hungry, because then that gives you false evidence that like you really can't control yourself around the
Yeah.
food. So, we want to position you for success there. But the idea is, with repeated exposure, you get familiarity and things just become very ordinary. So it takes the food off the pedestal. So you're able to just have it in the house and it's not such a big deal. So usually it's the same as what you experience, Sarah, by day 4 or 5. It's like, well, if I could have it anytime though, like if I know that I have permission around it, then I don't need to eat it right now. I don't need to eat it all right now. And it just removes the urgency. So I still want you to like ice cream because it's delicious and it's like a food that you always liked, and you still like it, but we've taken it off the pedestal. So now you can just have a very healthy relationship with it and it doesn't have like power over you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You did a really good job working your way through that ice cream habituation.
I did.
Yeah. Well, what else? Let's see. So we worked on body image as well too. And we explored some movement things together. And I really saw you change your relationship, Sarah, with food and your body and with movement. And it's also fair to say that all of this is a practice. Like your relationship
Absolutely.
with your body and your relationship with yourself, it's like any other relationship. Like it's sort of ongoing, and it requires, consistent effort, and it requires for you to speak to yourself and treat yourself with kindness, just the way you would like a partner or anybody else you're in a relationship with. And I think that was a huge mental shift for you, Sarah, was just like relating to yourself in this whole new way. Whereas like when we're dieting and we're actively pursuing weight loss all of the time, so much of the narrative, whether we realize it or not, is like actually just shame, disempowerment, you're not good enough. So to be able to step out of that, I think has really positioned you to be in this really empowered place, no?
Yeah, it really has. I think I used to see it as kind of myself versus my body, as opposed to like we're one whole system. And we all want, and largely like my body is me, I am my body, and I want to feel good. And sometimes that's still kind of like, because I get migraines kind of regularly, so it's like, ugh, my head, but they happen. But like, I think we really talked a lot about how my body's a good body, and I've been listening to a lot of body image with Brie podcasts recently. That's been, because I can listen to podcasts while I'm working, and that's been a big help. Like when I don't have time to sit down and read something, I can do that, which is lovely. And those have been super helpful. But yeah, it is an ongoing process. Like I still have days where I don't like what I see in the mirror. I see a picture of myself and I'm like, ooh. Then there are days where like I'm neutral, and there's days that I feel great. And it's been a lot easier to not see the bad days as like written in stone and the thing that's always going to be the case and the way I'm always going to feel. It's able to just be, well, that was just a bad day.
Right. So you have a lot more perspective around it, I think. And and you have new tools for sure. And like bad body image days are going to pop up for all of us, I think, from time to time, and that's to be expected, but they won't take you down in the same way that they might have before.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I think. The thing I said is I wanted to be able to see myself in the mirror naked and not like be upset.
Yeah.
And I got there. I'm usually not upset
Mm-hmm. That's
because
huge.
there's a lot of mirrors in bathrooms.
Yes. Yeah, it's huge that you got to that point. It really is.
Yeah.
And we've also been able to separate to like, what does your weight or your body, like, what are you making that mean about you? And are you attaching like your self-worth and your value to your physical appearance? And we're able to dig a little deeper, and you start to see yourself as so much more than just your physical body.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm so proud of
Yeah.
how far you've come, Sarah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What else do you want to share today? Anything else top of mind?
Um, I just think I think one of the most interesting things I learned through this whole process is that I'm kind of a perfectionist,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of a control freak. And when I noticed that I didn't realize this until I was like, I'm not dieting, I'm working with Maria, I'm not doing this ever again. If I got too stressed out or upset about how I looked, or even just like was overwhelmed by like grad school and work and everything else, I would want to diet.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do something to control what I was putting in my body because that was a thing I could control.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really interesting. Oh, I need other coping skills.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked a lot about that, and also I think we talked a lot around food as a coping skill is actually fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes what your brain needs is a hit of serotonin or dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can't get another way. It's okay for that to be like a grilled cheese sandwich or whatever food makes you happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is one meal and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, that was a really brilliant realization on your part, Sarah, that required a lot of an intellectual and emotional honesty and a lot of self-awareness to be like, oh, dieting was a coping tool. And it was something that
Yeah.
I did to create a sense of control. But I think you can look back and have a lot of compassion for yourself, because really all you
Yeah.
were trying to do was ease your discomfort, which like human beings are wired to pursue pleasure and avoid pain. So that makes a lot of sense. And you were just trying to create a sense of safety for yourself.
Exactly.
And now you've been able to adopt much healthier coping tools, something that's going to be a lot more sustainable. But at the time, like, it had utility and it served purpose. So we're able to have compassion for that old Sarah, and
Yeah.
to also have so much pride in today, Sarah, that you've come and done all of this work and you're able to not have that knee-jerk reaction of like, oh, I need to go on a diet when you feel uncomfortable in your body. Because a lot of times, like, we're just taking it out on our body, but it's not really about our body. It's not really about our weight. It's just we are seeking that sense of control.
Yeah.
And especially for people who have perfectionistic tendencies or who have some OCD tendencies, dieting like falls perfectly in line. It really feeds to that. But we're able to see that dieting is actually really obsessive, and it's not a normal or healthy way of relating to food.
It is not.
But it's good too, Sarah, that you have, especially for those watching today, that you have um, pointed out that we don't need to necessarily demonize using food, like letting food be emotional, letting food be comfort, because there is a place for that. And if we're to say like that food can never be those things, then isn't that just another food rule? And that's just more restriction.
Mhm.
And that's why we see rebellious eating and binge eating. It's because people are telling you, no, you can't do that. And then that's all you want to do. So I think it's important that
Exactly.
we put that on the table as like, yeah, sometimes what you really need is like a fun treat to really scratch that itch and help you feel better. And also sometimes like you've been able to really ask yourself those questions, Sarah, of like, what do I really need right now? Sometimes it's food, but sometimes you're like, what I really need is just like go for a walk or take a bath or
Exactly. Yeah.
so,
And that's, I think, is just looking at it as not the tool, but a tool.
yes.
And I think one of the other really big keys for me was I think it was pretty early on, we started talking about, okay, but what are you getting? Like we talked a lot about like what I was afraid of losing and all my fears about the process. And then we looked at like, okay, but what are you getting? What did you gain?
Mm-hmm.
Not just like, what did you lose because of diet culture? What are you getting from kicking it to the curb? And I was like, I bought instant oatmeal for the first time in what feels like probably more than 5 years.
Yeah.
I have been less concerned about if I had too much pasta, do I really want to, I made a stuffed shell recipe, like a ricotta bechamel sauce, and I'm doing another stuffed shell, like a traditional with like cheese filling and red sauce today for dinner. Like,
Yummy.
yeah, and it's also like I'm also making like a really healthy chicken noodle soup thing later in the week because I also want that. Like I made vegetarian, veggie, and black bean fajitas last night, which are delicious.
Oh, yummy.
And yeah, but it's just like, you know, not feeling like I have to only make the like super healthy veggie heavy stuff. It's like, well, I want that. And then tomorrow I'm going to eat pasta stuffed full of cheese. And then I'm going to eat like soup and bread and a salad for dinner. One, you know, and it's just, it really has given me a lot more freedom. And I feel like I've gained a lot, not just in the types of things I eat, but like time in my day.
Mm-hmm.
Like we still meal plan in that it's like, all right, it's my week to cook. What am I going to cook this week? I'm going to go to the grocery store once and get everything I need. But not that like obsessive, here's what I can have for this meal and this meal and this day. Like if I just switch days up, it doesn't throw everything off. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, so you have so much more freedom now, more freedom of time, more flexibility, and also you can just enjoy foods that sound really yummy to you. And it sounds like you have a really good variety. That's one of the most important nutritional indicators too.
Yeah.
Is just like you have bread and you have salad and you have pasta and you have black bean fajitas with veggies and just like all of it's on the table. And if you let yourself, I know you also love fruit and yogurt and like really do a really good job of getting a little bit of everything. And if we're getting a little bit of everything, then like we can just pretty much trust that we're going to be well nourished and we don't need to be overthinking or obsessing over it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you've gained a lot since leaving dieting behind. Um, you really have. Would you add anything to that?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah. Well, it's been a thrill for me to see how your life has expanded since you have stopped tracking and counting and trying to follow those food rules.
It's been amazing to have stopped doing all of those things.
Yes, absolutely. And it was really my joy to work with you, Sara. So what would you tell, I would love to have just 100 more Saras and 100 more clients like you. So what would you tell anybody who is like considering taking this next step or maybe considering investing in help to heal their relationship with food? What advice would you give them?
I would tell them to do it. I was really worried because it's not cheap, but it's worth the investment. I think it was worth every single penny I spent and more. My biggest fear was that it would be just wasting more money on a thing that wouldn't work. That's not true. Also, if you're talking to Maria, you've probably already done that a bunch. What's one more time, right? Like if you're that worried about it, you've already done it on a million other things. Try something new. And I really think the biggest thing is just to be like mentally prepared to learn a bunch of random stuff about yourself that maybe you weren't aware of. And definitely get the reading list and the podcast. Like those things, like the stuff between sessions is so helpful. It's like any kind of therapy or intense like self-work on yourself. You can't just do like an hour with someone and then expect it to just like leave it and come back in a week and you're going to keep moving forward. You do need to do the work between sessions, but sometimes that's just eating ice cream. So it's fine.
That's your homework. But you did, I think one of the reasons that you were really successful in the program too, Sara, is that you did a really good job communicating with me in between sessions. And that's,
yes, that's another big thing. Like definitely take advantage of that. Like, cause I know for me, what really helps is even if it's just a quick, hey, here's what happened today. Like, here's how I'm feeling about this stuff. And there were a couple of times I was like, I'm having a really rough day. Here's what happened. And you would sometimes just like give me a quick reminder, like, hey, it's just a day. Or sometimes you're like, hey, let's talk about that, you know, in a couple of days in our session. But until then, you know, you might find this video helpful. You might find this like article or this part of a book I know you're already reading helpful. Like that was huge because it's not like when you're in therapy and you can't always access your therapist between sessions. This is like you can just text or a message or whatever, and knowing that there's someone there to support you is huge. Like that was really big.
Yeah, I'm so glad that was beneficial for you. And you did such a good job taking advantage of that. And I really do think that that's why you guys see progress so fast and you're able to heal this. Like when you look at all of the time that you spent dieting, the decades that you spent dieting, and then we worked together for like 90 days and you're like, you've healed your relationship with food. Like it really didn't take that long. You know, not to say that like you're cured of everything for the end of time, but like you have all of the tools. And I think, yeah. And I think the reason that you feel so free now is because we were able to work side by side for those 90 days. It wasn't like, we do a session, see you next week, you know? And that's what I think is so powerful about the therapeutic relationship. And that's one thing that I seek out when I hire my own coaches, my own mentors, is it's like, can they be as invested in me as I am in me? And if the answer is yes, and if it's going to be a true partnership, a true mentorship, then it's like, you're in good hands, right? Like you are going to be fully supported. And it's such a good feeling. And that's why too, like I have an application process, like I have a qualification process, because I want to make sure that like you are going to take advantage and you are going to reach out to me in between sessions, because that's what gets you guys the best results. And that's what makes this so enjoyable for me too, is like, if we can really build that strong relationship, then I'm able to on graduation day, look at you on Zoom and be like, she's got this, like, she's good. Like, I know that at the end of the day, you can be confident moving forward. Because of all the work that you put in. So you should be freaking proud of yourself for all that work.
I am. I remember talking to my husband. I'm like, I don't know if 3 months is going to be enough. I might be like, I might be too broken to fix. What if I can't do it? And he was like, well, you can always do the 6-month program. Like Maria already said you could. I was really surprised, honestly, that like we were coming up on 3 months and I was like, no, I think I got this. Like,
that's amazing.
Like knowing that it's always going to be like a thing I need to, that it's something I'm going to always need to work on a little bit all the time. But I feel like I didn't need to be in that like once a week, intense, like constant working on it thing and for some people that they're going to need that, and that's totally fine. But I think what really makes this great is that knowledge that, okay, if I can't do it in 3 months, it's fine. I can extend to 6, and that felt really good. The knowledge that like, you don't have to like just go 3 months and if I'm not done, it's too late. I've messed it up. Right. Like that felt really good. Just like that knowledge that I think I can do it in 3 months. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I try to reassure my clients on. I just had somebody before you, Sarah, this morning, who just started, and I'm like, you know what, I just want to remove some of that like pressure and urgency. Like, we don't have to solve all of this in 3 months. Like, I'm never going to stop supporting you. And like, I do offer a 6-month program, but it's also like, maybe we do bi-weekly sessions or monthly sessions, or you come to group calls, right? And we do interviews like this. We stay in a Facebook group. So it's like, I do think that can be intimidating, that people are like, but I'm too broken, or like, I don't think I'll be able to fix this, or like, maybe I'm a lost cause. And it's like, let's just see how you feel in 90 days.
Yeah. And I would encourage people that you are probably not too broken. Like, you're not too broken. You're not too damaged. You're not too whatever.
Yes. Thank you for that message. Absolutely. Sarah, this was incredible. Do you have anything else that you want to share?
No, I think that's everything. Oh, also, I think another really big thing that can really help a person is have a good support group. Have good support people like outside of Maria, even outside of the Facebook group. Like, there's amazing people in the Facebook group. But like, I have friends who struggle with weight, and one of my friends was like, I know you're working on recovering from this. Let me know if it's too much if I talk about my own weight or like what I'm doing to change my weight. Just like, I didn't even have to ask for that. She just was like, hey, I know you're doing this thing. Let me know if what I'm doing, I don't want to mess up your recovery. My husband's been super, super supportive. I have tons of amazing support people in my life that have been just, it's not that you can't do it without that. It does make it easier. It definitely makes it easier to have people in your life who are like, because I know my husband, I was like, I want to try this thing. And he was like, well, like, is this Maria person? Like, does she have certifications? I'm like, yeah, no, she's got a lot of education certification in this. And he was like, yeah, okay, that sounds good. Let's do it. And I was like, but he's like, no, you need it. It's, you need to be happy. We're going to do it. And that can be really beneficial. So find people in your life that are supportive. And if there are people you find that aren't, maybe unfollow them on Facebook. I know there have been some people I have, not for being unsupportive, but just people who post a lot about diet and what they're doing. I've just unfollowed them. And if I feel like I want to go scroll their page and see how they're doing, I do that. But kind of know that it's okay to remove things that are going to make it hard.
Oh, that's great advice. Yeah, it thrilled me that you had such good support in your husband, that he encouraged you to do what you needed to do and supported that. But also, Sarah, you've done a really good job setting necessary boundaries. And how cool that you have this community of people who will even like offer a boundary, like, hey, you can take me up on this if you need it.
Yeah. And that has been just amazing to know that the people in my life care about me that kind of way, and I've had other people start dieting and I've been like, you're over my house, you eat a lot. Here's what we're going to do. I'm not counting calories. I'm not going to look that up. I will let you know. And it's just been, I'll just tell me what you're making and I'll just work it into like my day. And I'm like, awesome, cool. I can do that.
Yes, you've done a wonderful job of taking care of yourself, but also honoring the people in your life
Yeah.
and having healthy boundaries. And that is what I would recommend as well for anybody who
Yeah.
is on this journey. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. It's such a joy to see you again. I'll see you next week in our group call. But
Yeah, you will.
I'm so grateful for you. It was such a joy to work with you. And thank you for doing this interview.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was wonderful working with you too.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll see you soon.